Adrienne Shelly. On November 1st, 2006, Adrienne Shelly was found hanging in the bathroom of her Manhattan office. A sheet tied to the shower rod. No note. Police initially concluded the death was self-caused. Case closed. Except it wasn't. Her husband, Andy Ostroy, refused to believe it.
No!
Adrienne was a 40-year-old indie film darling, a mother to a young daughter, and she had just finished directing Waitress, a film that was about to launch her career to new heights. Why would she kill herself? The answer came from a dusty Reebok footprint on the toilet seat. It didn't belong to Adrienne. It didn't belong to anyone in her family. It belonged to a 19-year-old construction worker named Diego Pilco, who was doing renovations in the building below her office. Here's what really happened. That afternoon, Pilco went up to her floor to steal something. Money, valuables, whatever he could find. But Adrienne was there.
Hey!
She caught him going through her things. She threatened to call the police, and that's when he attacked her. According to the pathologist, she fought like a lion. There were scratches, defensive wounds, signs of a desperate struggle. But Pilco was stronger. He strangled her with his bare hands until she stopped moving. Then came the staging. He dragged her body to the bathroom, tied a sheet around her neck, and hung her from the shower rod to make it look like a suicide. He even tied a complex knot, one her husband later said she wouldn't have known how to make. Then he went back downstairs and continued working like nothing had happened. It took weeks for the truth to come out. That footprint led investigators to Pilco, who eventually confessed. In 2008, he pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. At the sentencing, Andy Ostroy told him, "I hope you suffer as much as she did." Adrienne Shelly never got to see Waitress premiere at Sundance. It became a hit. She became a ghost. David Huffman. David Huffman was a working actor. You might not know his name, but you'd recognize his face. In 1985, he was playing Lenny in a production of Mice and Men at the Old Globe Theater in San Diego's Balboa Park. On February 27th, he was stabbed to death in broad daylight in a public park surrounded by police officers. And nobody saw it happen. Here's the bizarre part. Huffman wasn't targeted. He wasn't robbed. He was killed because he tried to be a hero. Around midday, he spotted a 16-year-old kid breaking into cars near the theater. Instead of calling security, Huffman decided to chase him. The kid ran down a trail into Palm Canyon, a steep wooded ravine behind the park. Huffman followed. What happened next was pieced together from forensic evidence and the killer's confession. Huffman caught up to the kid, grabbed him, and they struggled. The teenager, Gennaro Villanueva, was carrying a screwdriver in his pocket. During the fight, he pulled it out and stabbed Huffman multiple times in the chest. The wounds were small, almost invisible. Huffman bled out in about 30 to 45 seconds, collapsing in the brush. A group of school children on a nature walk found his body an hour later. They didn't even realize he'd been stabbed at first. The wounds were that small. Meanwhile, just a few hundred yards away, 25 police officers were conducting a training exercise. They heard nothing, saw nothing. Villanueva was arrested within days thanks to Crime Stoppers tips. He was convicted of murder. The case became a cautionary tale about the dangers of playing hero. David Huffman was 40 years old. He died trying to stop a car thief armed with nothing but good intentions. Sharon Tate. August 8, 1969. 10,050 Cielo Drive, Benedict Canyon, Los Angeles. The name Sharon Tate is synonymous with one of the most brutal murders in American history. But the details of that night are even more horrifying than most people realize. Sharon was 26 years old and 8.5 months pregnant. Her husband, director Roman Polanski, was in Europe. That night, she had friends over: hairstylist Jay Sebring, coffee heiress Abigail Folger, and her boyfriend, Wojciech Frykowski. They had no idea that Charles Manson had sent his followers to that address with orders to kill everyone inside. The killers, Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, and Patricia Krenwinkel, climbed the hill to the property, cut the phone lines, and began their assault. The first victim was 18-year-old Stephen Parent, who was leaving the caretaker's cottage. Watson shot him 4 times through his car window. Then they entered the house. What followed was chaos. Jay Sebring was shot and stabbed when he tried to protect Sharon. Frykowski and Folger tried to escape through the back, running toward the pool. They were chased down and stabbed repeatedly. Folger was stabbed 28 times. Frykowski was stabbed 51 times and beaten with a pistol. Sharon Tate was the last to die. According to testimony, she begged for the life of her unborn child. Susan Atkins reportedly told her, "I have no mercy for you." Sharon was stabbed 16 times in the chest and back. The autopsy noted defensive wounds on her arms. She fought until the very end. Before they left, the killers wrote "pig" on the front door in Sharon's blood. The murders shocked the world and effectively ended the peace and love era of the 1960s. Manson and his followers were convicted, but Sharon Tate's name became forever linked to senseless, brutal violence. Marie Trintignant. Marie Trintignant was French royalty. The daughter of legendary actor Jean-Louis Trintignant, she was a celebrated actress in her own right. In the summer of 2003, she was in Vilnius, Lithuania, filming a TV movie about the writer Colette. Her boyfriend, rock star Bertrand Cantat, was with her. On the night of July 26th, he beat her to death in their hotel room. Cantat's initial story was that they had argued. She had fallen and hit her head on a radiator. An accident. A tragedy. But the autopsy told a very different story. Marie Trintignant had suffered at least 19 blows to the head and face. Her right eye was swollen shut. Her nose was broken. There was an open wound above her eyebrow. A forensic expert later said her injuries resembled shaken baby syndrome, the kind of damage caused by repeated, violent impacts. She didn't die immediately. After the beating, Cantat put her in bed. She slipped into a coma from the brain swelling. She was flown to Paris for emergency neurosurgery, but it was too late. On August 1st, 2003, Marie Trintignant died. She was 41 years old. Cantat was convicted of murder with indirect intent in Lithuania and sentenced to 8 years in prison. He served 4. The case sparked outrage in France, not just because of the brutality, but because of the leniency. A rock star beats a woman to death and walks free in 4 years. Marie's family has never stopped fighting for justice. Her father, Jean-Louis, publicly disowned Cantat and called him a murderer until his own death in 2022. The autopsy photos, showing her unrecognizable, swollen face, remain a haunting reminder of what domestic violence really looks like. Carl Switzer. You probably know Carl Switzer better by his nickname, Alfalfa, the kid with the cowlick from The Little Rascals. By 1959, he was 31 years old, and his child star days were long behind him. He was working odd jobs, drinking too much, and getting into trouble. On January 21st, 1959, he went to collect a $50 debt. He never came home. The man who owed him the money was Moses Bud Stilts. Switzer had helped find Stilts's lost hunting dog and wanted to be reimbursed for his expenses. That evening, Switzer and his friend Jack Piot showed up at Stilts's house in Mission Hills, California. Switzer was drunk and angry. What happened next depends on who you believe. Here's what everyone agrees on. There was a fight. Piot hit Stilts over the head with a glass-domed clock, giving him a black eye. Stilts grabbed a .38 revolver. During the struggle, the gun went off once, sending a bullet into the ceiling. Then, Stilts shot Switzer in the groin, severing an artery. Switzer bled out and was pronounced dead at 7:27 p.m. But here's where it gets murky. Stilts claimed self-defense. He said Switzer pulled a switchblade and screamed, "I'm going to kill you," before throwing it at him. A knife was found near the body. The coroner's inquest ruled it justifiable homicide. No charges were filed. But Stiltz's stepson, Tom Corrigan, who was 14 at the time, told a different story decades later. He said Switzer and Piot were actually leaving when Stiltz shot Switzer in the back. He said the knife was closed, like it had fallen out of Switzer's pocket, not been thrown. He said Stiltz then threatened to kill Piot too, and only stopped when he heard police sirens. The truth died with Carl Switzer, bleeding out on a living room floor over $50. Merlin Santana. Merlin Santana was 26 years old when he was murdered. You might remember him as Romeo from The Steve Harvey Show, the smooth-talking teenager with the easy smile. On November 9th, 2002, he was shot to death while sitting in a parked car in South Los Angeles. The reason? A lie. Here's what happened. A teenage girl had falsely told two men that Santana had made unwanted sexual advances toward her. It wasn't true. But the two men believed her, and they decided to teach him a lesson. They tracked him down. In the early hours of November 9th, Santana was sitting in the passenger seat of a car on a quiet residential street. The driver, a friend, was behind the wheel. The attackers approached from behind, opened fire, and shot Santana in the head. The driver, uninjured, sped away and drove about half a mile, 0.8 kilometers, until he spotted two police officers at the intersection of Crenshaw and Exposition Boulevard. He flagged them down, desperate for help. But it was too late. Merlin Santana was pronounced dead at the scene. The shooters were eventually caught and convicted. The girl who started the lie? She faced consequences too, though nothing compared to what Santana lost. His life, his career, his future. All gone because someone decided to spread a rumor. It's one of the most senseless celebrity murders on record. A sitcom star killed over a lie in a parked car on a quiet street. No motive that made sense, no justice that felt adequate. Just a young man gone too soon, because words have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are fatal.